Hi, I'm Kamie Page, second grade teacher.
And I'm Alan Page, former football player and Minnesota Supreme Court Justice. We're here today in the North Woods, and we'd like to share one of our children's picture books with you. If you share our book with somebody special, feel free to call me Grandpa Alan.
We hope you enjoy the story.
Grandpa Alan's Sugar Shack.
Written by Alan Page and Kamie Page, artwork by David Geister. Breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. Nothing can come between me and my syrupy pancakes. Grandpa, what is sodium hexametaphosphate? Grandpa raised his eyebrows.
Hexameta what?
Hexametaphosphate. It says right here on the label that it's an ingredient in our syrup, but I thought syrup came from trees.
Well, pure maple syrup does, but it's a bit too expensive for us to buy.
What kind of syrup is this? I asked.
It's the kind that comes from a factory. It's just imitation,
He said matter-of-factly. Does it taste the same as pure maple syrup? Grandpa Alan made a face and chuckled.
When I was younger, I remember my grandparents had a sugar shack in the North Woods. They would leave home for a month or two in the spring to tap maple trees and make homemade syrup.
My eyes widened. Really?
Indeed, sometimes the whole family would pack the car and drive up north with them. We'd have a big pancake breakfast to welcome spring, and,
He added wistfully.
if I'm being honest, that magical syrup tasted nothing like this.
Grandpa, I started, do you think we could try it? Could we go up north sometime? Could we make our own maple syrup?
Oh, now, I'm not sure I'd even remember.
Grandpa hedged.
I reckon it'd take a bit of time and effort.
Please, I begged.
Well, I do remember my grandma telling me that each spring the North Woods come alive. The sun sways low in the sky, tears fall from icicles, and the bare trees dance with their long, tall shadows.
His voice was like a morning lullaby.
Each spring, the woods send a silent spring siren. That's when you know it's time to start sugaring.
I was enchanted. Is that what they call it? Sugarin'?
Yes, sugaring. And your spring break is coming up soon.
He hesitated.
Maybe we could try it then.
Time moved like molasses, but finally spring break arrived,
It's time.
whispered Grandpa, careful not to wake the rest of the cabin. I gently rubbed my eyes awake. The dark morning greeted me with an eager smile as the sun peeked over the horizon. Wrapped up snug in a layer of wool blankets, the quiet sang softly in my ears.
Don't forget your hat.
Grandpa reminded me.
It's going to be chilly out there.
Wisps of our breath rose, clouding the snowy path in front of us. The crisp crunch of our boots sent a message to the birds. They scattered as we trudged through the thicket to find and tap the maples. Each tree, weathered and bare, seemed to bulge with delight as we approached.
Tap, tap, tap.
We hammered the spiel into the tree.
Tap, tap, tap.
The maples were ready to wake from hibernation. The sun rose as we wended along the twists and turns of the trees. In the brambles and branches, we spied the tracks of wild turkeys, snowshoe hare, and tiny furry field mice. The warmth came quickly, so I took off my mittens, then my hat, then my jacket, and then I heard it.
Drip, drip, drip. Drip, drip, drip.
What's that sound, Grandpa? He grinned.
It's the sap running.
Where's it going? I wondered aloud. Grandpa smiled.
Not that kind of running, silly.
By the next morning, we had collected 43 gallons of sap. A drop dripped on my pinky. It looks like water, I said, frowning, and it's not sweet at all. I was certain the only thing the sap would turn into was disappointment. Slowly, we made our way back to the sugar shack. Grandpa said we needed to boil the sap before any magic would happen, but my skepticism grew. The roaring fire didn't seem to be doing much of anything. Grandpa said I needed to be patient, so I watched, alert, looking for any signs of readiness. Nothing happened. Finally, tiny ripples formed on the surface of the sap, and it started to boil. "Is it time, Grandpa?" Grandpa smiled and shook his head.
Not yet. It's got to get feisty.
Bubbles began to pop, and suddenly I sensed the sweet smell of maple rising from the steam. "Is it time, Grandpa?" Grandpa stirred the sap and shook his head again.
Sorry, the colors will change over time. We'll know we're close when it begins to look like caramel.
My shoulders sagged. I kicked at dust and pebbles scattered. My thoughts were drifting away like the sweet vapor when I noticed that the pot was now only half full. Panic set in. "Grandpa, it's disappearing!" Grandpa put a hand on my shoulder.
It's just cooking off, kiddo. We still have way too much sap.
Too much, I thought. We barely have any left. Where was it all going? The sugaring pot was almost empty. I was beginning to feel hopeless. Then Grandpa's eyes softened. He nodded. "Is it time?" I asked hopefully as I stared, mesmerized by the sticky golden goodness. Grandpa Allen didn't say anything. He dripped a drop for me to taste. An explosion of subtle sweetness stunned me silent. It was time. Our syrup used to come from a factory, but not anymore. Now it comes from our sugar shack in the North Woods. Breakfast is still my favorite meal of the day, and there's nothing sweeter than sharing it with my grandpa.